Hello everyone. I get to work the camera myself today. Alex is working, so I'm trying to see if I can do this on my own. I just need to grab my glasses first. Otherwise I can't see anything. Now I can see. Okay, today we are doing lesson 19. I'm not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. And we are doing chapter 2, the separation in the atonement, section 6, fear and conflict. Being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. Yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does, if you so choose. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. Fear prevents me from giving you my control. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. This removes them from my control and makes you feel personally responsible for them. This is an obvious confusion of levels. I do not foster level confusion, but you must choose to correct it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. Why should you condone insane thinking? There is a confusion here that you would do well to look at clearly. You may believe that you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is that you are responsible for what you think because it is only at this level that you can exercise choice. What you do comes from what you think. You cannot separate yourself from the truth by giving autonomy to behavior. This is controlled by me automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. Whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. Interjecting. Here in this second paragraph, it is telling us unequivocally that our thoughts are responsible for the things that we are experiencing. And when we give over everything to Holy Spirit, He then can correct our thoughts, but we have to give them to Him first. We cannot continue on believing as we do and think we're going to be healed from it. It doesn't happen that way. You have to hand over your thoughts to Holy Spirit. In handing them over, He will give you the correction needed. Continuing on. Paragraph 3. It is pointless to believe that controlling the outcome of misthought can result in healing. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind, not your behavior. And this is a matter of willingness. You do not need guidance except at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Change does not mean anything at the symptom level, where it cannot work. Interjecting again. Here it's telling you, just like I've been saying, that until you change your thoughts, you don't heal. Until you willingly look at those thoughts and ask for correction, you cannot heal. It's as simple as that. There's no possible way to heal without looking at those thoughts and handing them over to Holy Spirit and asking for the correction. Very clear. Continuing on. The correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. At that level, you can help it. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. The particular result does not matter, but the fundamental error does. The correction is always the same. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. Interjecting again. Anytime that you have a difficult choice or decision to make, what he is saying here is go to him and ask him for what it is that you need to be doing in that moment. And he will show you what it is that you need to be doing. He will give you clear guidance and direction. If there's any fear coming up, any conflict coming up within you in that moment, that should tell you right there that that's something that you shouldn't be doing, or excuse me, not shouldn't, that you should consider to not do. Simply because if there's conflict there, it's something that you need to look at. Before just arbitrarily doing something, if you feel conflict inside, take it to Holy Spirit. Ask him if it's the right choice and decision. He'll guide you through it, always. Anytime I hand over my stuff like that, if there is any amount of fear there left over, I know not to do it. Simple, clear. If there's fear, don't do it. It tells me that I am in my wrong mind and I'm not thinking clearly. Continuing on. 5. Fear is always a sign of strain arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. This situation arises in 2 ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion that usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. Whenever there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. Your mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first to the second type, but will not obliterate the fear. Interjecting again. What this is talking about here in this particular paragraph is that all of us come across situations where we're being asked to do something that we really don't feel comfortable doing and we really don't want to do. And yet, because it's our friends and our family, our bosses or our co-workers, we are taking on that peer pressure and doing these things that we do not feel in accord with. It doesn't resonate with us, so it's going completely against what we think, believe, and feel to be true. And when we waver from that truth and follow what those people are dictating to us, it does arouse a sense of coercion and anger and resentment and all kinds of negative, nasty emotions. And a lot of times it is based off of a fear that we are doing something wrong because it doesn't resonate. It does not feel good to us. That something is out of alignment and it doesn't feel right. And when we are being asked to do things like that, honestly consider looking at that and asking yourself, do I really want to do this? Is this really something I want to put my name on? 9 times out of 10, you'll find you don't. And you're only doing it because you are being pressured to do it. And it leaves you feeling used, disgusted with yourself, and generally feeling a sense of animosity toward the people that are coercing you to do it. Continuing on. 6. It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort, but this implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple, but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of atonement is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. The recognition of this worth is reestablished by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, you have abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs. I'm going to interject again here. Part of what he's saying here is that when you have those conflicts and you willingly look at them, those conflicts inside of you, and you willingly look at them and ask Holy Spirit what it is that you're perceiving in that moment, what it is that you're experiencing and feeling, He will then correct that error within you. He will always correct the error within you. It matters not as long as you are willing to look what the item and issue is about. It has no merit or meaning. And a lot of times, folks, what it ends up happening is you are being guided to look at what it is you are defining here. What is your definition of what's happening? What meaning are you placing on it? And when you actively look at that, you can then receive the correction. But you gotta look first. There's no other way around it. You have to look. And as I've said before, I have this thing about pulling it apart bit by bit so I can get a full, comprehensive understanding of what it is I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how to correct it, and why this correction is needed. Kind of like when I looked at the stuff that my grandmother on my father's side had done to me when I was 10 months old, 10 months old, force-feeding me and then kicking me across the room. In those moments, I chose to believe that I had done something wrong, that I must deserve to be treated this way. At 10 months of age, I consciously thought that. And when I looked at that with Holy Spirit and I said, okay, I get it that I'm misperceiving something here. What is it and why was I being treated like that? And in that instant, Holy Spirit showed me the truth, not only of what I did in believing those things about myself, that I had done something wrong and I deserved it, But he also showed me that in those instances that my grandmother had her own judgments about herself and about the situation that had arisen. That my birth created the hell that she was perceiving. In her mind, she was angry at herself for not being able to control her son. She was angry that her son had impregnated a little Asian girl and had to marry her. And she couldn't control that. They were from the deep south, Alabama. In her mind, my mother wasn't white. She was not good enough for her precious son. And because of that, I was never going to be good enough. Besides the fact that I was also a girl. A useless girl in her mind. My mother could not even produce a son for my father, and that created such hostility and angst that she took it out on me. She struck out at me, an innocent child, as being the cause of her pain and suffering. She projected out onto me what she believed about herself and her situation. Nothing more, nothing less. And I had to learn to let that belief go, that I had done something wrong and that I deserved that. I'm 44, folks. It took me 40 years to figure that out. 40 years to figure out that I had done nothing wrong. That none of it was my fault. That I did not deserve that type of treatment. That's the type of stuff he's having us look at here. That's the type of stuff he is telling us, that when we willingly look at these things, the fears that we have had based off of these judgments that we've placed on ourselves, that we've enacted on ourselves, will be removed. But we have to willingly look first. Because when I looked at those things, my diseases started disappearing one after another. No medications, no surgeries. They simply vanished. Continuing. Paragraph 9. Everyone experiences fear. Yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. Interjecting. By the way, that was the last paragraph of this section. All of us experience fear. We're taught to fear. We are taught to feel shame, taught to feel guilt. Our minds these thoughts that come into our minds, the things that we are believing in to be true, create the world around us. They create our diseases within our body. They create the pain and suffering that we endure day in and day out. All of these things that we have going through our heads are to be looked at. All of them. The good, the bad, the right, the wrong, the pretty, the ugly. All our judgments, all of our opinions, every single thought. You must go through the darkness to get to the light. A mental picture that Holy Spirit has given both Alex and myself in the past is, imagine yourself walking into a very dense forest from bright sunlight. As you step into that forest, your eyes have to adjust to that darkness. And as you walk through that darkened forest, it matters not that the sun is shining all around it, outside of it. The more you step into that forest, the deeper you go, the more you start feeling anxiety and fear of the unknown. The more you start experiencing the physical ramifications of those fears. Your mind telling you, turn around, go back. It's safer that way. Don't continue on. Yet, with every step forward you make, looking at those thoughts, you're making your way over to the other side of that darkened forest. And as you get toward that other side of it, you start seeing the light filtering in through those trees. And as you go further and further through that forest, getting closer to that other side, that light gets brighter and brighter and brighter until suddenly you're fully in that light. All those fears, all those judgments, those recriminations were for nothing. They weren't real. And as you step into that light, that dawning understanding will come to you. None of it was real. It was all a lie you were being taught to believe in. And in truth, this is what we have to do. We have to go through that darkness to get to the other side, to the light. The key here is to take each step and willingly place yourself in Holy Spirit's hands. Walk with Him through that forest. Each tree blocking the light is a thought, a belief. And as you walk through that forest, He will shine the light on each one of those trees, on each one of those thoughts and beliefs, to show you the misperceptions and the beliefs you were holding on to and how untrue they are. Moving on to the lesson of the day, lesson 19. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. The idea for today is obviously the reason why your seeing does not affect you alone. You will notice that at times the ideas related to thinking precede those related to perceiving, while at other times the order is reversed. The reason is that the order does not matter. Thinking and its results are really simultaneous, for cause and effect are never separate. Today we are again emphasizing the fact that minds are joined. This is rarely a wholly welcome idea at first, since it seems to carry with it an enormous sense of responsibility and may even be regarded as an invasion of privacy. Yet it is a fact that there are no private thoughts. Despite your initial resistance to this idea, you will yet understand that it must be true if salvation is possible at all. And salvation must be possible because it is the will of God. Interjecting. As I've been talking about in these previous lessons, what we think and believe, we project out on the world. Everything that we believe in was taught to us by someone else. Everything we hold forth as being true was taught to us by somebody else. When we are having these thoughts come up in our mind, whether it's fear, shame, guilt, any of it, we project it out there. And as I said in yesterday's lesson, what we project out there, what we're thinking and believing in, what we think we are seeing and perceiving, we are projecting. And as we do so, so does everyone else around us. They've all been taught to believe the same as we are. To judge and be judged, to give an opinion, to give advice, whether it's asked for or not. And this is what it's talking about. That in truth, all of our minds are connected. What we perceive, others perceive, because we are all thinking alike and the same. When we start changing the way we believe and perceive the world around us, it has to follow suit that everyone around us will start to eventually see the same thing. When we start seeing the truth and we share those lessons that we are learning, those truths that Holy Spirit is showing us, we are extending that truth to our brothers that we have experienced. And extending it, we are allowing them to witness it for themselves. Take it in. As we testify to that truth, they witness it, take it in, and in those moments they can then make a choice and decision for themselves of whether or not they want to continue with the beliefs they have or give them up and finally go with Holy Spirit. It's their choice, their decision, and they have to make it. Continuing on. 3. The minute or so of mind searching which today's exercise is required is to be undertaken with eyes closed. The idea for today is to be repeated first, and then the mind should be carefully searched for the thoughts it contains at that time. As you consider each one, name it in terms of the central person or theme it contains, and holding it in your mind as you do so, say, I am not alone in experiencing the effects of this thought about blank. The requirement of as much indiscriminateness as possible in selecting subjects for the practice periods should be familiar to you by now, and will no longer be repeated each day, although it will occasionally be included as a reminder. Do not forget, however, that random selection of subjects for all practice periods remains essential throughout. Lack of order in this connection will ultimately make the recognition of lack of order in miracles meaningful to you. Apart from the as-needed application of today's idea, at least 3 practice periods are required, shortening the length of time involved if necessary. Do not attempt more than 4. So this was lesson 19. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. And chapter 2, the separation and the atonement, section 6, which is fear and conflict. Thank you for joining me today, folks. My name is Sabrina Reyenga with Thor here next to me. Thank you for joining us. We are grateful and thankful to be here with you today. Blessings and love. Namaste. Thank you for joining me, folks. Have a wonderful day. Peace and love. I love you.